This is NoLaughTrack, Acme Comedy's official podcast. My name's Justin Severson. My guest for episode 20 is Shane Mauss. Hi,
Hello.
Shane.
Hi.
We're
doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. Let's do it. So how you doing?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Had a good first show last night. Looking forward to the rest of the week, as usual. Acme, always a fun club.
Yeah. Today is Wednesday.
Yeah.
This will be posted later today. So you did one show last night. We have a live studio audience here right now.
Yeah. This is as many people as were here last night. Oh, old Tuesday night. It's hard. I think Acme's. I wonder if they're the only club, one of the only clubs in the country that do a Tuesday night show.
I hear that, yeah.
So considering that, I thought it was a nice little turnout last night. Usually when I'm here during that summer contest thing.
Right.
And everyone gets all their friends to show up to see them do stand-up for the first time or whatever it is.
Right, and then you come out here and go, hey, wow, huhuge crowd. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Oh, wait, who's here for the first contestant? Hey, how about the second? Hey, who's here for me?
Yeah. If I'm lucky, I'll get it. That's the best I hope for. Who's here for me, everybody? One person. Sort of.
Yeah, that was the door. What's your history here at Acme? I know you've been here before. We've met before several years ago. So
yeah, this is my fourth year here in a row. I'm always here around this time. Although usually earlier, I realized when I got here, I was like, oh, I packed like I was here last time when it was nice and warm.
Oh, you just missed that, by the way.
Oh, really?
You just missed warm.
Yeah. I hate cold. I'm out in LA now, and I was in Austin for a year before that, and so I've just become accustomed to being out of the cold weather. I'm from Wisconsin, so from La Crosse, so I'm from 2.5 hours from here, and so it's fun when I come back. Sometimes, especially on Friday and Saturday night, it'll end up becoming like a high school reunion.
That's a good thing?
Yeah, I mean. It wasn't. I wasn't either. I wasn't popular or a loser in high school. I was just like
you were just
kind
Shane,
of like in the middle somewhere,
and
hung out with a fair amount of people. But I was somewhat invisible and sort of kept to myself. So people like. I think didn't know much about me, and then I became a comedian. They're like, "Oh, I went to school with a guy who's on TV. Yeah, that's great."
Are people like, "Dude, we had chemistry together"?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. It happens a lot here, but even, I'll be in like Nashville or something like that, and all of a sudden someone will come to a show and be like, "Remember me? I was in a grade above you, and this and that, and have some memory of me."
You played baseball with my little brother.
Yeah, like, oh, that's terrific. Thanks for coming out. But it is cool. I have a few of my groups of friends ended up out here. Just a lot of people from La Crosse that want to get to a big city. Minneapolis is a good destination, still staying close to home and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun. I'm staying for an extra night, so I'll probably like crash at a buddy's place or something like that.
Oh, really?
So that's handy.
Yeah. Big plans for that day?
No, I haven't. I haven't even. I'm not sure who I'm staying with just yet. I'm deciding. I have one good friend that I would normally ask to stay with, but he just got married. He usually doesn't have the nicest place in the world. I hope he's probably my one friend that would actually care to listen to this podcast, and he knows who he is.
Watch what you say then.
Yeah, I know. But so we'll see. I have like married friends with extra bedrooms and all that I could stay with, but then I feel like I'm a burden because they have kids and all that stuff. Yeah, as a guy, we just don't need much. No. Ladies need stuff. They need lots of it.
Just push the newspaper to the side and all the in the ashes, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. They do a great job. Ladies putting together houses and the decorating and all that stuff, and making us responsible. But I sometimes feel like, is this ever going to end? Like, okay, the house is up and decorated and looks great. can we stop now? Can we stop with always having to add stuff?
Not everything has to match. It's okay.
Right,
It's
right.
okay.
So I'm just I'm going through that because I have a new girlfriend since the last time I was here.
Oh.
And we moved in together like right away. Because I moved to LA for her, and then I was like, now I got to go and find a place in LA, and what I could get on my own was kind of crappy, and she wasn't happy with her living situation. And it's just easier when you combine your resources. You can
resources,
get
yes.
such a nicer place. And so I went through months of like I was put to work like every day, like painting walls and all that. Our place looks fantastic.
Oh, really?
But I'm just to the place now. I'm like, okay, we're done now, right? I mean, how much improvements do we really want to do to a rental apartment? We're renting an apartment, and she has me like remodeling a rental property.
It'll be great for the next
exactly.
for the next couple that lives there.
Exactly.
They'll really
all the
appreciate
work that I put into it. Now they're just going to go and increase our. I think we have. It's California, so I think they have some sort of
control.
Yeah, rent
control.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so hopefully they don't try to raise the cost on us too
How
much.
serious is this relationship? Are you buying,
I mean, we live together.
Are you buying furniture together?
Yeah, we buy furniture together. That's pretty serious.
It is.
That's pretty serious. It's a level of commitment. And, combining resources. We're in love. Things are going well.
Combining genitalia.
Combining genitalia.
Resources.
Yeah.
I think it goes buying furniture together, then a dog, and then kids. So.
Oh boy, she's really pushing for that dog too. She really is. Well, at our place though. First off, she's a comedian as well. Her name's April Macy, and she travels a lot. So she's on the road at least as much as I am, and so it's ridiculous for us to have a dog. I mean, oftentimes there's no one home for weeks at a time, but what's saving me is our apartment doesn't allow pets. But she's still like, maybe we can talk to them, and I'm like,
small
no.
enough. If we get one that doesn't poop, it'll be fine.
And I hate small dogs passionately.
I can see it now. You'll be back next year on this couch talking to me.
Talking about. I'm going to be holding my little. Man,
your little lap dog.
What are the worst ones? Like maybe those little mini poodles, or what are they called? I don't know. I hate all those small dogs. They suck. Just get a cat. They're all like. I just hate those small dogs that are yippers. They got to mask their insecurities because they see all these other big dogs around, so they try to act tough.
That's the Napoleon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, buddy, if I wanted a guard dog, I would have bought a guard dog. Yeah. I got you to be cute, and you yipping all the time isn't cute. Just be cute, like what I bought you for.
Little dogs should be used to feed big dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
That works.
That's what I think.
I think that works. I have some questions about growing up in lacrosse.
Yeah.
Because when let's see, how do I say this? Like I grew up in the Twin Cities. So when I had some relatives that grew up like in southwestern Minnesota, let's say 2 hours away from here.
Yeah.
And they would talk about and no one says it here, but there they say, "Oh, last weekend we went to the cities." Like the big city, meaning the Twin Cities, to come do shopping or go shopping or whatever. And is there an equivalent in lacrosse? Like people say, we're going to, where would they go for the big city?
Oh, well, I mean, in lacrosse, they would come here to, I think for a lot of people to drive like 2.5 hours, especially like smaller town people, which I was a town right outside of La Crosse. Most people I knew, they didn't travel that much. And when they did, it's just like your standard, like, oh, I hear everyone's supposed to go to Hawaii one time in their life, so they would do that. So it's people that aren't necessarily cultured or whatever. So to drive 2.5 hours to Minneapolis, where it's a big city, and I don't understand how the traffic works, and it's scary. But I hear they have a real big mall up there.
That's right.
I mean, the idea of vacationing to go to a mall is absolutely ridiculous to me. But that was the kind of stuff that do when we were kids, and it's like, oh, the Mall of America, awesome. Which,
can we spend the whole weekend?
Hey, whatever makes you happy. It's just now that I've traveled more and I know better. It's like, there's a lot. I mean, I know not everyone has the money to just go off and do things whenever they want to, but if you are going to save up money, go and get some culture somewhere, because it's going to increase your happiness level and your experience a lot more than the Mall of America is going to. It's like, here's every store you've ever seen before in one place.
That's right.
Can you believe it?
Wow.
And there's big Legos and
that's right.
And like
I used to have to go to Chicago and Milwaukee to see all these things. Now I just go to Bloomington, Minnesota.
Yeah, that crappy fair that rolls through your town once a year? Here's a permanent version of that. And none of this stuff individually is good.
No.
But the idea is, if you put all this crap together, that makes it special or something like that. And whatever. I can see why kids would enjoy the Mall of America and why it would be an easy destination for parents. But yeah, I would say, and the interesting thing about that too is, I mean, my parents are so they ended up moving to, suburb of La Crosse, but they're from small cities in Iowa.
Oh,
and
wow.
if you go to these small cities in Iowa, I mean, you're talking real kind of bumfuck ass backwards.
Sure, Main Street has a bar.
Yeah, and that's about it. And like at the gas station.
Yep.
And I mean, my dad's hometown, I think the population's, maybe like 500 people or something like that. And they got one school, and that's that. And but so for them to travel the 40 minutes to go to La Crosse, Wisconsin, because they have a mall there that's like, basically a strip mall,
a Ben Franklin and a Pomida.
Exactly. It's like, wow, can you believe it? And then even to them, it's like, the idea of like someone being scared of how big of a city La Crosse is, like, oh my gosh, I saw a colored person in there. And, all these cars with, roads with 4 lanes.
Yeah, going the same direction.
Anything like it. And So yeah, I don't know. I guess the moral of the story is get out and see some stuff. I'm not saying that like big cities are better at all. I'm saying that if you're from a big city, you should go and check out some small cities
for sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But living in a bubble is what concerns me.
Is a very bad thing.
Yeah.
I always thought that my cousins got ripped off at Christmas because I was the only one. Well, me and my sister were the only ones that were from. Oh, and I guess I had 2 other cousins. But anyway, in any case, we're the only ones that were from, like the Twin Cities, and everyone else lived in the middle of nowhere, like several hours from here. I always felt they got ripped off at Christmas because their parents didn't have the same shopping options as my parents did.
Oh yeah.
I remember one year my cousin got a. What was it? Do you remember I don't know if are you a basketball fan, like NBA basketball? There was a player named J.R. Ryder that played for the Timberwolves like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He was kind of a thuggish guy. He was from Oakland.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think I remember.
Yeah,
I used to collect cards back in the day. I'm not into sports anymore. But, yeah.
Well, he won the slam dunk contest one year.
Oh, okay.
And I remember at Christmas, my cousin, and this was like 3 years after J.R. Ryder had left the Timberwolves, and I think he was like, in and out of basketball because he used to get in so much trouble. My cousin opens up her Christmas present, and it's a J.R. Ryder jersey, and I was just I went and patted her on the back, like, was this a mistake? Like, did these just get to your town?
Yeah, well, a lot of times parents just don't know either. I mean, I feel like that must be one of the tricky things with being a parent of like, as a kid, what's cool to you obviously seems absolutely absurd to any adult.
Yeah.
And insignificant. Well, I mean, maybe not sports or whatever, but to to then but you're trying to buy something nice
she
that
says
your
she
kid's
wants a
going
jersey.
to
I'm going to get her a jersey.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I remember I wanted when I first got a CD player for Christmas. Oh my God, I was so happy. But my mom was kind of poking around at what CDs that I want, and I was really young at this, and I wasn't really into music yet. And what I wanted more than anything was Weird Al CDs.
Oh yeah,
and I got.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Weird Al is still awesome. If there's people out there that haven't seen Weird Al live in the last few years or
I've
whatever,
seen him in the last year.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Really good show. But anyhow, she got me a CD instead called Wacky Weirdos, which was it was a bunch of Halloween kids songs, Monster Mash and Purple People Eater and stuff like that.
Oh, no.
Just meaning really well, and you couldn't have been further off from. And then it's and I remember playing it to my friends, look how stupid my mom is. This is what it's my mom was just trying to do, make me happy and get me the thing that I wanted. And we're shitty kids that. I say we, not every kid was as terrible as I was.
No, you break their hearts doing that.
Yeah.
I remember when the Christmas after Return of the Jedi had come out. And I was huge. I still love Star Wars. I was huge into collecting the toys. And it's the same thing. My grandparents lived in Cambridge, Minnesota, which now is a bigger city. But back then, it was this thing, they had the one drugstore, one bar.
Right.
I think they had a movie theater with one theater, And there was definitely no Target or Walmart or anything. And we go to Christmas, and I really wanted an Ewok action figure. So I'm opening up my presents, and I rip this thing open, and I can see, it's an Ewok. And then I look closer, and it's a fucking eraser. It's an eraser. So, it's stiff. You can't pose the arms. It's not going to walk. Yeah. And if I use it, it's going to get smaller. I remember, looking at it, almost getting tears in my eyes. This isn't an action figure. What a little prick. What an ungrateful little dick I was. That was the best she could do, but it wasn't good enough for me.
Well, it also goes to show you, too, that as a parent, not that I know anything about parenting, I'm not one, but if you really pay attention and know it, it doesn't cost very much money to make a little kid happy. No. If, I remember, getting, an action figure for Christmas, and that was, the main gift of this $8 thing, but it was the one that I wanted, and it was the best Christmas ever, and that was an $8 thing. But the point was I got the exact thing that I wanted. But speaking of old towns getting being behind on things like that, I would go back when we'd visit my grandparents. When I was big into card collecting, I'd go to the card collecting shop there.
Oh, I know.
Because they always had, for whatever reason, the guy wouldn't even have the subscription to the Beckett's.
The price guide.
The price guide. So he'd have these old ones or whatever there. So I would just look through the new one, what cards had gone up in price and whatnot and what had gone down. And I would just rip the guy off.
Yeah, Barney Fife behind the counter. He's just happy to have some business that day.
Which, of course, looking back, what at the time was me ripping him off was still a poor investment. None of those cards are worth anything today.
Yeah.
But I think we were both ripping each other off.
When it comes to that, truly.
Yeah, it's just.
I wish I could have all the money back I've spent on baseball cards.
Oh, just ridiculous. One of my brother-in-law, his dad, that was how they bonded, and and his dad had one of those things where it was his mom had thrown out all of his cards, and he had, whatever that would have been worth this and that. And so his dad had spent probably like $100,000, like, because he would just come home with boxes of everything, and that's what they did. You know, that's how they bonded. That's how they spent time together. It was opening up packs and sorting them and going through and just like, and he just has like a whole room just filled like floor to ceiling with just boxes and boxes and boxes, and it's just like, what do I do? Do you just call someone and be like, hey, here's a bunch of free cards if someone will just pick these up and get them out of my place, essentially?
Yeah. Can I put these in recycling? I mean, is it worth it?
The nice thing about, I was always really shy around girls, so it was a nice confidence booster to go to that small town because you know, I was never like one of the cool kids or whatever. Like I said, I wasn't like, I didn't get bullied a lot or anything, but I wasn't one of the cool kids either. But I would go back to like Lansing, Iowa, this small town, and I was big into like, I was an aggressive rollerblader. Like I'd do half pipes and stuff like that. And so I was always an adrenaline junkie, but I was very good on rollerblades by the time, you know, rollerblades hit Lansing, Iowa 4 or 5 years after they had initially came out. You know, they were just starting to be
and you were
cool.
already a master.
And yeah, I was so I was just like a Jedi to those people. So I'd be skating down the street, like jumping off things and flying down hills and doing this and that. And
they're at the coffee shop. I think Tony Hawk's in town. There's this kid doing flips. I don't know.
Exactly. So I got to be quite a stud in old Lansing, Iowa.
They finally traded in their one of those ones that I think I had them. They're like metal. And they go over your shoes. You know, like the roller skates.
Oh, I forgot about those things. Yeah, you like attach them to your actual shoes.
Yeah. And there's like maybe one strap.
I forgot that ever existed.
I know. Well, I know that I doubt they're still made. My father is a an antique collector / junk buyer.
Yeah.
And I have 2 daughters, and he brought a pair of those to my house about a year ago. He's like, oh, you can hold on to these for Megan when she gets older. I'm like, and what? So she can break both ankles? Like, no. There's better technology now.
Yeah.
Do you want my 5-year-old to get teased? Really?
Right.
Like, no. If she's going to do that, we're going real rollerblades. And we can find, there's so many, they've been around so long, there's so many, I bet I could find used ones for the same price as these metal death machines you want me to put on her feet.
Yeah.
Like, no way. No way. How did you
have 2 daughters? How old are they?
4 and 6 now. 2 daughters.
6?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Christmas time coming up for you. Better nail it.
Well, you know, it's funny you were saying like all the $8 action figures, like the, you know, like it doesn't even matter about price. It's just like, you know, if it fits that, you know, what a kid really wants, it doesn't matter what the cost.
Right.
I have found that you can go and buy the $100 dollhouse, or you can buy the $7 one at the thrift store. And they don't know the difference. And they're super excited for either one.
Well, I would think that's the difference between girls and boys. Other than girls, I don't know if girls like obsess over clothes or like what's in or whatever more at that age. But what I was going to say is I would think that boys would be more into like video games, and keeping up with video games and having to buy out whatever's new that year would seem really expensive to me, more than just like buying girls dolls or whatever.
Well, thankfully my kids have not caught on yet because I just got my daughter playing my PlayStation 2, which are now like, you know, 10 years old.
Right.
And she thinks it's the greatest thing ever. So
nice.
You know, she's not old enough where like friends have like Xboxes and stuff, so she doesn't really know about that. So
Yeah.
I can still go without having to buy the newest and best.
Nice.
And my girlfriend has an iPad, which means I don't need an iPad.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, all those are filled for very cheap cost, next to nothing really, which is very nice.
That stuff costs less and less. I have a tablet just like sitting in a closet somewhere. I just bought just for a backup for my computer whenever like my computer gets fried and I need to send it in or whatever. It's like, well, now I have a pad thing. But that's it's like a few $100s and you can be all set up. It's pretty incredible.
How did you? What got you to leave lacrosse? I want to get back to that. Were you doing comedy there? How did it start?
No,
Let's go over that.
I wanted to be a comedian, and the idea of performing anywhere where like friends or family would be was terrifying to me. And there wasn't really anything in lacrosse that I knew of any. I think there was like one room in, some one-nighter somewhere. I never even checked it out or went to a show or whatever. I didn't even want to tell people that I wanted to be a comedian. I was like worried about being judged or like people thinking it was like a foolish idea.
Oh, that's a stupid idea.
Like that. Yeah.
Let me shit on your dream right now.
Right. So, I come from, my family was very kind of practical minded, and this is how life works. You go to school and then you go to college and you work hard and do this and that and behave like everybody else and your life will be fine.
Right.
So anyhow, I moved to Boston because I had a friend who was moving to Boston. He got a job at MIT, and I just decided to tag along with him because I didn't know how to start doing stand-up. I just had no idea. So I was like, oh, you must have to go to New York or L.A., and I was like, oh, Boston, close enough. It's a big city. They have comedy clubs around there.
Sure.
So I'll do that. And I went to Boston. Man, this would have been, I don't know if it was like 2004. And I just had no idea what to do. I was just calling up. I looked in the phone book. We were still using phone books at the time.
Right.
At least I was. And I looked in the phone book under comedy club and just called comedy clubs. Be like, hey, I want to be a comedian. Will you let me be a comedian at your
Are you guys taking applications for comedians?
Yeah. It's just like, how does it work? How do I get started?
Right.
And there was one club that kind of in Boston that's called the Comedy Studio. It's one of the best clubs in the country to start at anyway. And it's a showcase room. It's in Harvard Square. They always have a really nice audience, very, very intelligent audience, but they're also like really enthusiastic. They're not snooty. They'll laugh at like blue collar stuff just as much as they'll laugh at like jokes about time travel or whatever weird thing.
Sure.
And the owner is pretty welcoming to new people, and he's like, well, why don't you come by and check out the show? Here's a few free tickets. And come a few times, and then if you decide that it's something that you think you're comfortable with, we have an amateur night on, one Wednesday each month or something like that. And so I did that. And
how old were you?
I think I was just about to turn 24.
Okay.
At the time. And so I checked out a couple shows. I was like, yeah, I can do this, no problem. I'm funnier than these people, all that.
Yeah.
And then it came time to do my first set. And I'd been writing for many years, just like ideas that I had for stand-up. So I'd wanted to be a stand-up forever. So I had, what I eventually came to find out was that I actually had a lot of good jokes already written.
Yeah.
So that was helpful when I started. But I didn't really know how it worked with like putting a set together and whatnot. So I remember the night before my stand-up, I had all these like pretty good jokes put together. I'd went through my notes, and then I had like this idea for something else. I think it was like about hemorrhoids or something like that.
Sure.
That I thought would be funny for some reason. It was about like WebMD. It was kind of, I just didn't know how to put jokes together. It maybe could have been funny because I hear jokes like this now about like, WebMD making you feel the symptoms or whatever. Right. And it was about like looking up what hemorrhoids, the symptoms for hemorrhoids, and just like, oh, well, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Like my ass feels uncomfortable right now, like reading about this.
Yeah.
But the way I delivered it was just like really gross and whatnot. And I lost my place. And I think I was like, I was going to quote something from the site, and I had it like on a piece of paper that I was going to read.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't find the piece of paper, and it was kind of uncomfortable. But I actually started out somewhat strong, and people knew it was my first time.
How long were you up there? Do you remember?
I think like 5 or 6 minutes or something like that. But afterwards, he was like, figure out go to open mics or something like that to hone your act a little more. And then he gave me the name of a guy in town that taught a stand-up class. And so I was like, oh, that's understandable. And, I know what I just did on stage wasn't that great. Yeah. And so I took a stand-up class, and that was really helpful, just like feeling comfortable and knowing where to go for open mics and like, just simple, stupid stuff like set the mic stand behind you if you aren't going to use it rather than having it in front of you the whole time. And just silly things like that, and having a group environment with a whole bunch of other people trying it for the first time to like run jokes by and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful. So when I first started, I did this open mic. It was crazy. It was called the Emerald Isle in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and it was in just one of the most awful like ghettos, basically, imaginable, and a really dangerous area. I got mugged at gunpoint one time outside this bar. But anyway, this was like a true open mic. If you went there and you signed up, you went up. Yeah. And the shows would go for like 5-6 hours sometimes. And it was miserable. And it was only comics. There were no... Well, once in a while, a newbie would bring his friends to watch him or something like that, and they'd stay until after his set, and then they'd leave. And it was just, everyone was miserable. Everyone was just thinking about their own stuff.
Yeah.
And not really paying attention to anyone on stage. And it's just in this rundown bar. And how they lure comedians to sticking around and drinking more is they buy pizza for everyone at like toward the end of the show, like 1:00 in the morning or whatever. So if you stuck around and you did a spot, you'd get a slice of pizza. And so all these homeless people would come by and sign up for this open mic. Way. Yeah. No. So that they could get a slice of pizza. So there would be all these like schizophrenics and whatnot that would get on stage and like just do this fucking horrific, ridiculous stuff, and like sometimes it'd be hilarious, and then other times it'd just make you feel sad, but it was entertaining.
I was hoping that you were gonna go, and one of those guys actually got up on stage, and today he's Mike Birbiglia or something.
Yeah. Mike Birbiglia is from Boston, but
that was a good pull by me. I knew that.
Yeah, but I went to this club, and every week I did 5 minutes of new material, and it was all like I figured out how to make comedians laugh, and so all my stuff in the beginning, I was just kind of, I was like a big Howard Stern fan, and I was into like kind of jarring, shocking kind of material anyway. That's like just what made me laugh at the time.
Yeah.
I was 23, 24, and I didn't have a lot of life experience as from a smaller town, haven't traveled much, and I was like angry about life and whatnot. And so I had a lot of like really weird, filthy stuff. But so I did a new act every single week. And I get like a laugh a week, basically. And so at the end of it, I went back to that comedy studio for like the graduation show, and I put together for my set at the comedy studio, which was actually like a good club.
Yeah.
And I had just like the set of the night by a long shot. And there were other more established comedians that were on the show and everything. And so there were a lot of like more established comedians that were there watching the show too, and right away they're like, oh, this guy's great. And so they started putting my name into all the clubs around the city, and then I kind of gained a reputation for doing all this new material all the time, because I already had all this stuff written, so I was just going through old notes and whatnot. And everyone was so encouraging that it just happened really fast, where next thing I knew, I was hosting, after a few months at clubs. And then I was such a bad host. I was horrendous. I could never remember anyone's intro. I didn't feel comfortable like being a cheerleader and stuff. I'm still not that great of a host. And so because I was so bad as a host, but clubs still liked me and like believed in me, and like the local comics were really pushing for me, clubs just started featuring me.
Okay.
Right away.
You skipped a step.
So yeah, I totally skipped a step and just became a feature right away. And that went really well. And then I even started doing like longer headlining sets in like I would travel like 3 hours to go and do a headlining set at some like essentially open mic, just because they would let me do, you know, an hour's worth of time there or whatever. And so even within a year or so, I was having the stage time available to do like a full hour set, which really helped me develop in a hurry. I mean, looking back, I'm like, oh, those jokes aren't that great. I don't know how I got through that. And I mean, I would still get some pretty good laughs and everything. It's, you know what it is? Part of that is your audience rises to the level that you have too. So if a lot of comics are like, oh, I used to tell this joke and now it doesn't get any laughs anymore, it's because your jokes now are better. And so you've raised the bar of your own set. So now it's like you just told this awesome new joke of yours that's better than your old stuff, and people laughed at that, and now you're telling this old joke that used to be your best joke, but now it's not your best joke anymore, and you're going, how come that doesn't get the laugh that it used to? And some people just attribute that to well, I don't deliver it with the same confidence, or you know, I don't put as much into it as I used to.
Because
but part
it's
of
delivered so many times, and you don't think that's it.
But part of it's also because you have better jokes now, or you should. You should be constantly getting better as a comedian. Yeah. I think right now what I'm doing is the best stuff that I've ever done.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So I did that, and then things were going pretty well. So about 2 years in, I got in the Boston Comedy Festival, and I did really well in that. I kind of got my head in the finals and made some poor choices because I let some people influence me, like half-assed, like managers and agents that were there that gave me really bad advice that I listened to and shouldn't have, which wasn't a valuable lesson. But I didn't do that well in the finals, but that was enough for this comic, actually Chell from Minneapolis. Yeah. And I owe him big time because he put my name in. He was in the Boston Comedy Festival, and he didn't move on, but he saw me, and he was like, to these HBO, he had done this HBO Aspen Comedy Festival the year before. And he had become friends with whatever tour talent scout. Yeah. And he was like, oh, you got to check out this guy, Shane Mauss. So this lady calls me, and she's like, hey, can you send me a tape? I sent her a tape, and she's like, that's great. I want to get you on the showcase for this HBO festival in Aspen, which is a pretty prestigious thing at the time. It doesn't exist anymore, it went for like 20 years. And then I did a couple showcases in New York, and then this lady was really pushing for me. I was one of the last people selected. They selected like 22 new comics a year for this festival, and I think I was like the 21st or 22nd comic selected, just barely got in, and went to the festival, had just like the best sets of my life, won an award for best stand-up comic, and got management and representation, and got to be on Conan right away. So I did Conan before my 3rd-year anniversary of doing stand-up. And then that's fast. And then from that, you know, on my first Conan, I plugged a club on it so I could do my first like proper headlining gig, like at a real club, week-long thing, and that went really well. And again, looking back at the material I was doing, I was like, man, I hate a lot of that material. It wasn't that good, but I did very well. Yeah. And
it worked at the time.
It worked at the time, and then and then I got on Conan again, and I got more clubs, and I had that ball of steam going, and so then I was just a full-time road comic about 3 years in, and so yeah, that's kind of how I got my break.
A question I always like asking when people say they've done the late night talk shows. Who was on the episode that you were on? Do you remember of Conan the first time?
Yeah, it was Neil Patrick Harris, Doogie Howser, who I was upset because I did a joke on that show, and then months later I was watching How I Met Your Mother, and then out of Neil Patrick Harris's character's mouth came one of the jokes that I had done.
No way!
On Conan while he was like there watching me, and so I was like, what did he think that he ad-libbed that, or were the writers of the show watching while he was on Conan?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck happened there? But it was a joke that wasn't like it wasn't my most brilliant, like unbelievably unique joke in the world, so it's not like no one could have thought of it.
Yeah.
It was just, well,
that's crazy.
Yeah, maybe just a very odd coincidence.
Could be.
that happened.
Could be.
Could be a lot of things, but anyway, fuck that guy. But Conan was super nice.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. When I'm on TV, I'm like, oh, this is probably going to suck like most TV that I watch.
That sucks. I suck. Everything sucks.
And so it's not even that I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out there and suck. It's like, this is a shitty environment for a stand-up to be in. Or I don't think like I think I'm a good stand-up comedian, but that's it. Like, I don't think I'm a good actor. I don't think I'm a good improviser. I don't think I'm good at pretty much anything else. Maybe there's skills that I'll get eventually. Mm-hmm. But I just don't really care. I like doing stand-up. But to show stand-up the way it's meant to be on TV, almost nobody's pulling that off. And so late night shows and stuff, it's just like, kind of an afterthought that you put at the end of a show. Yeah. Like, before we say goodnight, here's a little 5-minute thing, and then there's a whole camera crew in between you and the audience, and so it's a different dynamic than what a club is, and it's not set up specifically for stand-up comedy, which obviously it's not meant to be.
Right.
That's what a show like Live at Gotham or Premium Blend or something like that is for, which is a totally different vibe. And so all of that stuff is a lot of fun, and it's a great opportunity, and I'm very thankful for every time that I get to showcase my act, no matter what the circumstances are. But it's just not constructed specifically for, I think the only thing that I've done is like Jimmy Kimmel, where they had a whole separate stage built, like it wasn't even in the same room.
Oh, it's outside, isn't it?
It was like, well, they've experimented with different things. They did it outside for a while, and then, which is weird because it's like a whole different audience. Like they pull this audience like off the street. They're not seeing any of the whole rest of the show, and all they're there to see is this weird 5-minute stand-up spot that you're doing. And which is kind of like nice because they're just really enthusiastic for that 5 minutes. It doesn't take much to have people be enthusiastic.
Not when the lights go on.
Yeah. And so when I did it, it was like a stage inside that was in a separate building, but it was like an intimate room, not unlike this, smaller than this, but nice and intimate, still chairs right up to the stage and everything. Mm-hmm. And then the cameras were floating throughout or behind the audience. And the difference between that and having the cameras in front of the audience and having it like, okay, audience, you are now watching this production that you are separated from, and like a lot of people aren't watching you, they're watching the monitors up on. So now it's like there's such a level of disconnect between you and them that it changes the vibe completely.
No one's brought that up here before. That's interesting.
Oh, it's night and day.
Yeah,
it really is.
You make a really good point.
And I mean, I think the Kimmel set that I didn't really put much thought into my set. I was just at a place at the time, like I had all these spots I had done like 3 Conans, and I just got done doing, Live at Gotham, and I had a Comedy Central Presents coming up, and I had just done the Showtime thing, and I had done like about an hour of material on TV and like all these short spots and all these different little things here and there, and going overseas and doing some TV spots. And I kept on for every one. I was trying to do different material on each and every one, and this was like in a couple year period. So by the time I got around to that Kimmel one, I was really stretching it with where my material was at.
Without repeating, you're saying?
Yeah, without repeating
Wow.
any of the jokes that I'd done. And so I think it was some of the worst material that I've ever gone into a late night set doing, but it was like one of the best that I've ever felt about, just because of that level of intimacy and everything. And so that's great. And I can't wait to get back on Conan again. It's been a while. I've kind of I've changed my act quite a bit, and I'm doing more of like my act's more of like a long form kind of a thing now. I kind of have like a theme to it and kind of explain a few things, and it's a little bit sciencey and whatnot, and it's like a lot to get into. And so I don't do like a lot of quick one-liners like I used to do, or if I do, they're in a context of like this bigger picture of what I'm saying. And so I haven't done a late night set in forever because of that. And so now I want to go back and do it. And it's going to be great to go back on Conan again and everything, but it's just, you have to get in a totally different mindset when you walk out there. It's like, okay, remember, you got to talk to the camera maybe a little bit, or just remember that, there's the disconnect with the audience. So, and they're always like a little nervous in the beginning. That's what I did really well in my first few Conans. Was I just happened to, that's what I was into at the time, was I really liked the structure of jokes where I would make everything really uncomfortable right at the top, just like excruciatingly uncomfortable. And then I would just have a little twist and a joke or whatever that would make everything okay and release that tension. And it worked especially good on things like Conan, where the audience is not there.
They may not know who you are. Yeah.
They don't know who you are.
Yeah.
They would probably much rather see a band, if anything. Yeah. They're kind of in their heads like, oh, is there a camera on me right now? Right. Like whenever someone feels like this pressure, like, oh, should I laugh now? When's the appropriate time to laugh? And you're in your head. That's really hard. So it actually, that style lended itself to that, because what I would do is I would go out and I would just make it so uncomfortable in the room that everyone was like, they were terrified. They didn't know what was happening. They were like, what is this guy doing? Does he know what he's doing?
Did you get that from somebody else, or did you come up with that, I have a good idea, I'm going to make everyone uncomfortable? Was someone else doing that? You're like, I like that idea? Or?
No, I think that was like pretty natural. Not that no one else has done that, but I think that was kind of just in the process of figuring out, the various ways of building an expectation and twisting it, and having that surprise and keeping the audience on their toes. I stumbled across that, which turned out to be a good way to open for me, because I was always kind of drier and I was never totally comfortable on stage anyway. Like, I'm just not the most socially comfortable person in the world. I'm a good joke writer. Yeah. I just I've never felt like 100% comfortable on stage. Being on stage is one of my least favorite parts of comedy. I like sitting and writing.
Yeah, it's so weird. And you could write for someone else and never have to go on stage.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Yeah. But I also I would be mad that they're not telling it in the way that I want it to be told. But so to ease that tension that I have, it was just easier for me to make things ultra uncomfortable and then break that tension. So that really lent itself to late night. So that's why especially my first Conan was really successful, because I executed that.
I've been following you on Twitter for a while. You're really funny on there.
Oh, thanks.
And you're saying like the kind of your new stuff is more long form. I can say from firsthand experience that what you're writing on Twitter is 140 characters or less, and you're doing a good job being funny on there. And that's just joke. Thanks.
Twitter
is the opposite of long form. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some of it I'll have like something that I'm studying or putting together. Like I'll have like a really long bit that'll be like, oh, how can I sum this up in under 140 characters? So that's where some of that's coming from. But a lot of it's just an outlet. A lot of the stuff I tweet hasn't ended up in my act at all. So when I go, I just tweet that stuff, and then it's just I'm done with it. And then when I go back to it, is after like say I get an hour special, hopefully, and I record that, I'll scrap my act, and then every time I scrap my act or I'm just like bored with it or whatever, I'll just ditch it all and I'll go through my Twitter feed and I'll just put together a new act from my Twitter feed and then start fresh. And then I also try to do the same thing once kind of toward the end of like right about now I should do it because my act's pretty much at a point where it's like my hour's about finished. I'm still figuring out what I want to add in and what I want to delete, but it's pretty close to finished. So right now I can go through my Twitter feed and be like, oh, that works perfectly with that joke now that I have all the pieces assembled. But yeah, for the most part, I just I use Twitter just to keep people entertained.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm sure you don't remember this, but one of the last times you were in town performing at Acme, you stopped in at the radio station, KQ, where I work. You left that day, and I left that day with your CD that I think was pretty brand new at the time.
Oh, okay.
What is it? Now I don't remember. Parents Proud?
Jokes to make my parents proud. Yeah.
Are you pretty proud of that stuff still?
Yeah. I mean, it's just totally different than what I do now, so... It's interesting what happened during that recording. I had 4 sets. First set went amazing. I was like, nailed it. That's a CD. Mm-hmm. It's not going to get better than that. The second set went even better. I was like, oh my God, that's like the best set that I've ever had. That's a perfect CD. Third set went even better than that. Like, it was like, wow, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've never had such a strong set before, and it's all recorded. That's perfect. So what I decided was that I would just get hammered, and then maybe I'll riff with the audience or ad-lib some stuff, and maybe I can add like a bonus track or something like that. Just see what happens. But that show went so well. It like ended up being the best show of the week. And so I ended up using that one.
Really?
So I'm pretty hammered on the CD. They had to take a couple things out of the other ones because I got a little slurry here and there on some of the jokes. But yeah, that's like me absolutely hammered.
That's awesome.
And so I mean, I look back and I'm like, maybe there's a couple things I would have changed. But there's also like a couple bits that I'm like, oh, that would work so good to illustrate this point that I have now that's part of this bigger picture.
Yeah.
Whereas when I made the CD, it was like, here's a joke. Now here's a different joke for you. Now here's a different joke for you, which just isn't, my style's just completely changed over the last like year or so.
Wow.
From that. So yeah, I'm proud enough of the CD. I don't think it's going to be the best work that I put out. I thought for a first CD, it was pretty good.
You don't want to peak early.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
all right. I said I follow you on Twitter, but I don't remember
at Shane Comedy is my Twitter.
At Shane Comedy.
SHANE.
Yep.
Comedy.
Facebook. Do you much on there?
Just all my tweets also go through my Facebook fan page, which is Shane Comedy Fan. I often have people write me on Twitter and Facebook and, oh, can I get a discount? on shows. I'm broke right now and this and that, and I can sometimes help people out depending on where I'm at. It's hard at Acme because I have so many family and friends. It's definitely much harder for me in Minneapolis. But anyway, if you follow me on Twitter and Facebook, sometimes you can reap the rewards of me giving out free
retweet
things.
him. That's a good way to brown nose, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Shane, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do this again.
Fun. Awesome.